Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of not just the Locked On Padres podcast, but also the Locked On Yankees podcast. Sort of, maybe. It's a crossover. That's what we do. That's how I introduce things. I am your host with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. Follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno. I talk Padres stuff, not as much on my personal account. So go check out at LO_Padres if you only want that. Locked On Padres on YouTube. Blah, blah, blah. I am being joined by, again, I think. Wait, hold on. When was the last time we did a podcast? I'm being joined by one of the hosts of Locked On Yankees. Let me introduce him. Steve Granado. Sir, how are you doing?
I'm okay.
All right. That's all one can be these days.
It's been a couple of days, man. Also,
yeah,
we have talked more in the last week than I think we ever have, period. End of story.
Except for maybe the one game we went to. Yeah.
Or when Spider-Verse came out.
Yeah, or when Spider-Verse came out. Yeah, that's it. It's like we messaged over this, Spider-Verse, and then the one time we saw the Yankee game. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, I'm all right, man. How are you holding up? It's been a few days. How are you holding up?
It's been a slow burn. Like my brain has slowly atrophied more and more as time has gone on, right? So the initial Soto trade, which is, by the way, everybody, what we'll be talking about today primarily, but the Soto trade, just, it didn't sink in immediately, I think, for me. And I still like the deal, and we're going to talk about the deal and why I think it's great for both teams, potentially. But then you combine that with Shohei Ohtani, who now the Dodgers are getting for, I believe, the same amount as the cost of like an indie movie every year. And that's great. It's really great that the Padres are trying harder than any other team almost in the sport. And unfortunately, they have like the celestial being from Marvel in their division, which just makes everything feel like, like a moot point, I guess. So it's not great, man. It's not great to be a Padres fan right now. It's frustrating. It's frustrating the inconsistency with which they talked about the Padres spending. By they, I mean the sports media apparatus as a whole versus the Dodgers, which is, it's great for the sport that the best team got more great players and is going to sign more now because they don't have to pay Ohtani anything. So that's great. What about you, though? How does it feel to be on a team and a fan base that has, I guess, just good morale, I think is the way to put it.
Here's the thing. Juan Soto clearly makes the Yankees better. Like, I don't think anybody's arguing that right now. But one thing that definitely is the fallout of this Soto stuff is the Yankees have not even zero pitching depth. Zero. It is gone. It was decimated within a span of about 48 hours. It was just flat out gone because they made the Verdugo trade, which they lost 3 pitchers there. And then they made this deal, which they lost like 90 pitchers. And then they lost a bunch in the Rule 5 draft. Again, all in a span of 2 days. The Yankees, what was already fairly thin pitching depth, is like completely gone. So, yes, it's great. He's in the lineup and it's going to be awesome. And now, everyone's hyped and that's great. That's wonderful. I'm glad that there's a part of the majority of the fan base now that is excited because last year was tough to watch for a lot of fans who are not used to losing as much as they did. But on the flip side, like the Yankees have so much to do. They have a whole bunch of work to do, and they started doing it already with the trade with the Dodgers on Monday morning. They made a small move. They traded Trey Sweeney for a couple of guys back, Jorby Vivas prospects. So there are like a couple of things that they're already starting to do. They did make a couple of Rule 5 picks and like all this kind of stuff, but like by and large, they got nothing right now. So like it's great if everyone stays healthy and all that stuff, but I think it's a little like premature to be like Yankees 2024 all in. Here we go. They won the whole thing. I still think there's a lot that needs to be done to this team.
Yeah, and there's certainly a lot. Like again, when I complain about the Dodger thing, they can still lose. I mean, we've seen them. They've proved to us that they can lose to anyone, right, over the past 15 years or so. But it's more about just the stardom and the fact that the relevancy and and the Padres are just really lagging behind at this point. And I also want to defend you from some of the comments that I imagine we may get from this. That I think it's important to note that there is no single player that the Yankees gave up that is better than Juan Soto. All of them combined are not better than Juan Soto. What I think Steve is attesting to is just their current circumstance, right? Which is that you don't have a plan C now. no C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, right? You have your Cole, right? And you theoretically have your Carlos Rodon, and you hope that Nestor Cortez comes back, but like the backup, the reinforcement troopers that you can say you have an injury for 2 weeks, right? Say someone gets hurt for 2 or 3 weeks, knock on wood. I never hope that happens, but then you don't have some guy that you can be like, all right, this guy can fill up innings for us and be decent. And for Padres fans, just to give you an analogy, it's equivalent. So let's say the Yankees have some injuries that they're forced to pick up their own Vincent Velasquez, Jake Arrieta at the end of the season, and they're like, oh my God, we literally just have to fill up
We
innings.
just need a warm body.
A warm body, like
they
you
have
and I.
Four,
you know what
they
I
have
mean?
4 starters right now. They have guys that could potentially be the 5th and that are 40-man right now. But legitimately, right now, the Yankees have 4 starters. And like, there's like question marks on like 2.5 of them. So it's like, again, it's still December, dude. There's plenty that still can be done. And like, if they land Yamamoto, like all this kind of washes away. I still think the depth isn't there. I still think they have a lot of minor league signings they have to do with spring training invites.
Padres fans relate. Believe me, we relate.
There's going to be a lot of that.
Like a lot of stars and then nothing else, right? So like we had Matt Carpenter last year as our DH for most of the season, right? So and Nelson Cruz, players like that. So don't get me wrong, the Yankees can still turn things around. I think Yamamoto is like officially kind of the big, like best free agent I think still left. I know it's Cody Bellinger technically, like if you go by positional player value, but just the Yamamoto, the whole Yamasoto thing, how does that break down? They're saying he might be a $300 million guy, so that should be interesting. Every big team is on it. That'll be the next bombshell. But I think for this trade, like I genuinely think it's great for both. I really do. I have questions as to how the Padres found themselves in this position in the first place. How is it that you trade your whole farm at the time? James Wood, Mackenzie Gore, CJ Abrams, and before the comments attack me, James Wood sounds great from everything I've heard, and CJ Abrams is getting better. He's still a baby, guys. Not everybody can be Tatis right out of the gate, right? And he's under control for them for a while. So they got a lot, and theoretically it's like, oh, well, we get Soto for 2.5 years. Well, you didn't. You got him for 1.5 years. So that shows me that there was a lack of foresight when they were giving out all of their contracts to Cronenworth, Darvish, to an extent, Joe Musgrove. I know it was the year before. What's his face? I'm missing someone. Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, right? Like you give out all those deals and, oh, well, Soto, he wasn't taking an extension. Well, okay, then you got to know that before you trade for him. And if you do know that, then why'd you extend all those guys and make it that now you're only getting him for 1.5 years? There's a lack of foresight on their part. That being said, I think all things considered, you are in the situation. How do you salvage it? I think they salvaged it okay. This is a team that has a lot of pitching questions, just like the Yankees. Not as much now, but they were walking into the year saying we might lose Blake Snell. Now I'm changing it to a might because I'm not totally certain. He might have heard a birdie or two, your boy, just a little birdie or two. Maybe there's possibility. Not to mention a few weeks ago, there was a report that the Giants, Padres and Dodgers were interested in Blake Snell. So maybe they were looking ahead. They knew we're trading Soto, so maybe we could get Snell back. I'm talking way too much now, but anyway, I still think that they really beefed up depth. They gave themselves assets, and assets are underrated in baseball. This does not mean that I think Drew Thorpe, that we're hoping that he is the next Garrett Cole. That's not what that means. What it means is you've got a backup soldier, like we were talking about at the top of this, a plan B, C, D, right? And you have an asset to trade. The Padres are really great next year. Maybe you trade that and you get whatever you need instead. Maybe a bullpen arm, maybe a hitter, maybe a bat, whatever. It's just good to have flexibility, I think, especially in the Padres place. And again, there's no sign that they're not still committed to winning. They're still spending money. They still got Machado. If they didn't want to commit anymore, they couldn't. They literally couldn't because they still have Machado and Tatis and Musgrove and all these guys. So I think that all that being said, that's pretty good. And like you said, on the Yankees side, just hype, man. Like just being, is this like the biggest, like we're going for it move they've made since, dare I say, like 2009? You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to think of the last time they made a move that says we're going for it. The Stanton trade? Okay.
Yeah, okay. The Stanton trade was massive. I mean, obviously right now it doesn't look great because of the last few years, but at the time, like you were literally getting the National League MVP. Like you can't forget what he had just done at the time of trading on a very long-term contract that really, again, at the time, because it was signed before he really turned into what he was at his peak,
Mhm.
when he was on the body issue. At the time is like a fairly team friendly deal. Again, right now it doesn't look that way, and it isn't that way because he just has not hit and has not stayed on the field. But yeah, no, that I think since the Stanton trade, I would say, I mean, obviously getting Garrett Cole was a big deal. Obviously re-signing Judge was a big deal, but those didn't feel like super, super needle movers at the time.
Like
This
it's a given.
this
Yeah.
signifies like, screw it, we're going for it because it's the nature of the 1 year thing and you got to win now. And it addresses multiple needs that the Yankees had. And they gave up a lot, dude. They just did. There's no way to like skirt around that. Like you said, are they all combined better than Soto? No. But are they all combined better than Soto for after 2025? Probably, because there's zero guarantee that he resigns in New York. So um, it could be, I think, a smarter move in the long run for the Padres. Does that make it sting any less to Padres fans? Absolutely not. It sucks. Like,
Yeah.
duh, it sucks. I don't want to mince words and like make you be like, it's okay. Feel good that you just lost one of the best hitters in baseball. Like, I'm not saying that at all. Don't get me wrong. But as far as the future is concerned, dude, I don't think all of a sudden the Padres can't compete in 2024. I don't think that's the case at all because I said it when we did our crossover live the night of the Soto trade.
Yeah.
You couldn't win last season with him.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't fix all the problems anyway. And
Mhm.
while this trade does not solve all the problems for the Padres, it also, I don't think, is putting them that much further behind, if that makes any sense. Again, I know what Soto brings. I know he was your best hitter. I understand all of that. But at the same time, you couldn't do it with him. So it's not like all of a sudden this team is Shohei Ohtani-less and now all you have is like one guy potentially in the middle of the lineup, i.e. Mike Trout, that is probably going to end up getting hurt and miss 40
Yeah.
games at minimum. And you're just like, now what? You're
Yeah.
not in that same situation. There are a lot of other teams that in a Soto trade would have been way, way worse off than the Padres are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, well, I disagree slightly with the 1 year rental tag. However, you also phrase it as it's just not a guarantee. Now, I frankly think that the Yankees could make anything a guarantee if they wanted to, but that's what we've been talking about. Like, they haven't done that as of late. This is a team that didn't give famously Bryce Harper a call, right? Like they haven't shown that they're ready to just say, screw it, we're the Yankees. We're worth like $9 billion. Let's just, who cares? Like 20 million is literally nothing for us, or whatever the heck it'll cost for Soto, like 35 million a year, whatever he ends up getting. So that's a lot. But speaking of money, and we're going to talk about all the stuff that the Padres got in return. Steve is going to break it down for us in terms of the return and what we should be excited about. Before we talk about it, guys, let me tell you, we love our folks over at FanDuel. They're great. We love them. We've been partnered with them for a while, and if you, like me, have been really good at predicting NFL games this year, well then why don't you go ahead and check out FanDuel? They've got a really cool thing going on right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's 150 buckaroos just if the team you pick wins. Just like that. You want to pick against the Eagles? Everyone's doing that right now. Boom. Go out. It's a layup, apparently, according to everybody else. You want to just pick the 49ers? They win every week by 40 points. Go pick them. It's easy. You see, this is what we do for you. It's just listening to the podcast. We help you out. Don't you understand me? Anyway, if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, aside from moneyline bets, though, guys, there's no better time to get it on the action. The app is easy to use. Go check it out. They've got spreads, player props, over-unders, whatever you want. They've got you covered. So again, that's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to kick off your NFL season of betting. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Just like that, we are back. Steve, what's going on? Here at the Locked On Padres, Locked On Yankees crossover, we just spent the first half discussing kind of the bullet points, dare I say, of this trade. Again, I think that for the Yankees, it's going to be cool. I do believe that there's a chance that mainstream sports talk will only talk about the Dodgers and Yankees next year. I think that there's a strong possibility that they will never talk about any other team. And then, by the way, that's not a diss against other teams. The Rangers might just win the World Series again. You know what I mean? The Astros might just make the ALC.
The Orioles just go run away with the AL East.
They'll run away with the division. They won't win the World Series, though. They're going to get smoked again unless they spend money. I wholeheartedly believe that. But just in terms of the relevancy, that's kind of what's happening here. But let's talk about the return. So just to refresh everybody's minds, because you might have forgotten, given the Ohtani and all the craziness this weekend, you might have genuinely forgotten. In exchange for not just Juan Soto, but also Trent Grisham, who we have to talk about too, by the way. The Padres received Michael King, Drew Thorpe, Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, and Kyle Higashioka. So, firstly, I think it's easy to, the Higashioka thing is simple. Capable backup catcher. The Padres, while they have reportedly been really encouraged by Luis Campusano, my boy's development, he's still young and he has to work on his defense. And I think having a guy like Higashioka is a great, great backup. And he's had some big hits. I feel like just as someone on the East Coast, I see Higgy like in all caps every now and then, probably from you, frankly, or Stacy, like every now and then, where it's like he just feels like a professional player. This is not a guy that the Padres are bringing up who just happens to be a catcher to back up Luis Campusano. Instead, it's a guy who's professional, a little bit of a veteran in his own way. He's been around. He's seen it. He's been with the Yankees for a while. So that's a nice piece there for sure. And I think that the centerpiece of this trade is what we got to talk about first, which is the most interesting, I think, which is Michael King. First of all, shouts to the other Michael that was on your show. Everybody go check that out. Michael K was on Locked On Yankees this past Friday. So go check out that show. It was great. Michael King, give me the breakdown, because frankly, not again in context, I think people got a tad bit like wild about this guy. We're like, yeah, but this dude's like a number 2 star. What is he exactly? What's your kind of vibes about him? Because for the most part, he's had some injuries, but the talent seems to be there.
Dude, I think the hype that you're alluding to, if you sat down and watched Yankees games last year at the tail end of the season, and you watched Michael King pitch from as a starter, go through the whole warm-up thing, do the whole thing, not in the bullpen. Everyone saw it. We were all of us were going, whoa. It felt like he came out of nowhere because he had been in the pen for so long. So Michael King came up through the system, was traded from the Marlins once upon a time, I think in 2017, came to the Yankees. He was a starter throughout his minor league career. And then the way in was through the bullpen, which happens to a good chunk of guys, right? As soon as you get to the majors, it looks like you're going to be a pen guy. And that's what happened to him. And he's been a super effective reliever. And then it got to the point where, to the best of my knowledge, he comes to the Yankees and says, dude, I want to start again. Like, let me, like, we're short on starters right now. Let me get back into it. Let me start a game. Let me go through the routine and start stretching me out, and let's see how this goes. And then as soon as they started doing that, you started seeing like, oh man, that's right. Michael King, like every time he comes in a big situation, he gets out of it. And then now we're stretching this out over time. And what's really magnificent is he's been able to translate his super high swing and miss stuff as a reliever now as a starter, which is not super easy to do, right? No. Because now you're facing the lineup multiple times over. But that swing and miss stuff actually got better, which was kind of shocking. Obviously, again, it was only like a month and a half of him actually starting, but it was really, really impressive. And he was doing it against some pretty big teams. It's not like he's doing this against Oakland and Kansas City and like all these random teams. Like he shoved it against Toronto. And look, I know Toronto's offense was not like at the peak last season of Blue Jays history, but when you had Garrett Cole finish his season, which obviously turned into a Cy Young season.
The quietest Cy Young ever, by the way. The quietest Cy Young. He's weirdly underrated now. I can't get over this.
Yes, extremely so underrated. Weird. I've been saying it for a year.
Yeah.
But seeing King Cole, which I dubbed Nat King Cole, going at it back to back, thank you very much, was unreal, dude. You're just like, because obviously the talk heading into spring training was like, Cole Rodon. And then all of a sudden it's Cole and King. And you're going like, yo, this could be the makings of a legitimate 1-2 punch. And like all of it, you gave up nothing. All of a sudden you just had this in your back pocket. It's like finding $20 in your pocket. Yeah. And you're going, oh my God, this guy's legit. So it's really the swing and miss stuff. And it's like quiet confidence. And it's his demeanor, his delivery. It's very intriguing. I think that the Padres are really getting a diamond in the rough there, like straight up.
For a team that might lose Blake Snell, though, as I alluded to the first time, we don't know for sure now, given the Soto trade and whatnot. Essentially, after this, as of right now, it's like Darvish, Musgrove, and the guy who I always keep getting mixed up with the writer of Loki, Matt Waldron, would be your third starter. Now it's like, okay, cool. Now you have Michael King potentially as your third. Not to mention they could still go out and get someone, maybe make Michael King your fourth starter, right? And by get someone, I mean like those, middle tier free agents, not necessarily a Blake Snell. That's a lot more exciting. And just for some people to get some hardcore numbers, since the beginning, I believe it is of, hold on one second. Since the beginning of 2022, Michael King has a 2.6 ERA with a 30.6 strikeout rate across 155 innings, which is very, very, very good. Obviously, I don't really need to explain that for people. So also, if Padres fans, you might be a little concerned saying, oh, he was a bullpen guy. Like, are we really going to try and stretch that as a starter? First of all, he succeeded at times in longer stretches. I just gave the innings limit. And also, the Padres have experience with that. They brought in Seth Lugo last year. Now he's a free agent that's probably going to get paid by another team. And he succeeded transferring from the bullpen to starting pitching. Not to mention the Padres have the chef master Ruben Niebla as their pitching coach. So I think that this is a really, really underrated addition too. I just like setting it up. You know what I mean? I just like setting it up and start off crazy saying you guys were over exaggerating him. I am starting to believe that this guy could be really legit too. And Petco being a little bit more pitcher friendly, I think also could do him wonders. So I'm very excited about that. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about the rest of the trade package and conclude things in just a moment. We have to take a second to hear a word from our sponsors. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here on the Locked On Padres, Locked On Yankees crossover spectacular extravaganza supreme. Of course, we've been talking about the breakdown of this deal. Michael King being the centerpiece. We love him. Can you tell us a little bit about Mr. Steve? Can you tell us a little bit about, who was it? Drew Thorpe, Randy Vasquez, and Johnny Brito. Let's start first with the guys that are a little bit more on the major leagues, and that's Johnny Brito and Randy Vasquez. What do you think of those two?
Johnny Brito is super unassuming. He is perhaps the quietest ball player I ever came across in my life. He is like the sweetest, quietest guy that just, hey, hola. He's like one of those guys, just like the soft-spoken, sweet soul kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he just like gets out. That's what I've seen out of him. Mostly at the AAA level. Obviously, we saw him with the Yankees last year, and he was kind of forced into a role that he probably should not have had to have been in, thanks to the 2022 trade deadline. But Brito's like a great guy, which I always love when a team I follow gets a great guy. So you can always appreciate that. Someone you can legitimately root for and be happy about. But he has some unassuming stuff. He's got a great fastball changeup combo I really like. There were times where he struggled last season. He's still young. And again, he's probably pitching in a role that he should not have been pitching in. He should have been the leading pitcher for the Rail Riders, the AAA affiliate, as opposed to being the fourth starter for the Yankees. Yeah. So that's kind of what was thrust upon him last season. But for the most part, he fit the bill last year. There's going to be some growing pains there. Like I said, he's young, but he's got a good fastball. He's got a good changeup. He's like mid-90s. He's not like this big dude or he's a super unassuming guy. So I really like Johnny Brito. I like his quiet confidence. And I think if you put him in a role to succeed where he's in the back end of the rotation and you kind of forget about him a little bit, I think there can be those one-off games where, okay, Johnny Brito gave me 6 shutout today. Awesome. There's something that I dubbed the Johnny Brito line. And the Johnny Brito line is essentially 5 2/3, 2 hits, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. Just the most unassuming. Oh, I wasn't even paying attention. I grabbed a beer at the ballpark and I didn't even notice that he threw 5 2/3 of shutout baseball.
That's what Jordan Montgomery used to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like that. that. So I like Johnny Brito. Again, if he's in the back of your rotation, I think you could do a lot worse. I still think there's going to be growing pains. You mentioned Randy Vasquez, who also got a little taste of the big leagues. He's kind of in the same vein. He also has some triple digit potential. Especially if he ends up going into the bullpen at some point, that could happen.
Yes.
So, but yeah, he's mid to upper 90s, so he's got a good heater on him. He really got a very, very small taste of the big leagues, and I never watched him personally when I was in the Yankees minor league system. So, but yeah, there's some decent hope there with Randy Vasquez. And then as far as Drew Thorpe, I think this is maybe the most intriguing piece of this whole thing. Drew Thorpe came out of nowhere in 2023. I
feel like every Yankees prospect did, by the way, right? Like past couple years, they just exploded like out of nowhere.
Drew Thorpe was the marquee guy last season. He came out of nowhere. He was a 2022 draftee, did not play because at the end of the, college season, they didn't stretch him out. I think he just went down to the complex league or whatever and just worked out, but didn't actually play. And then he started in 2023 with the Hudson Valley Renegades, which is the high A affiliate. And as soon as he did, it was jaw-dropping stuff. The strikeout stuff was out of this world, Javi. I mean, this dude was putting up 9, 10, 11, 12, 13K games on the regular. He was making, you're just watching games. I'm turning on Hudson Valley Renegades games when I know Drew Thorpe is pitching because I'm like, who is this guy? A guy
who is this man?
He's like an early second round pick. And, who's really paying attention to the second round? Who's looking past pick 20, right?
Yeah.
Even that's give it. Like, who's looking past pick 15, really, in any sport? But a second rounder that is going to, I think, maybe be the steal of the 2022 draft because of how far he fell, quote unquote. This guy's potentially super, super legit, Javi. Like, I don't want to mince words. I think it's crazy. I thought that the Yankees should not trade him. No ifs, ands, or buts. I thought that Drew Thorpe should have been on the Yankees no trade list. I thought there were only 2 players that should have been on that list this offseason. It was him and Oswald Peraza. And as we talked last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, Oswald Peraza didn't make any sense to go back to the Padres, which is why he wasn't included in the deal. But
only a 3-team would have made sense.
Yeah. But Thorpe was the other guy that I'm like, don't trade this guy. And they did. Obviously, they got a great bat out of it. And I'm not saying it was a bad trade. But I'm saying when you look down the line, you may be going, wow, how do we get Drew Thorpe on this team? I'm very high on this kid. He was my pick to click for 2024. He was my prospect to watch for 2024. And he'll likely start with your AA affiliate. And I wouldn't be shocked if he got to AAA next season because his stuff was so crazy legit, dude. I couldn't believe it was jaw-dropping stuff. Like, I'm not trying to mince words here. This dude is good. And I really hope that he flourishes in San Diego because he has the makings, it looks, of being a legitimate pitcher in baseball. Like, I'm very high on Drew Thorpe.
Absolutely. And I think that basically what Steve is saying, not to be hyperbolic, that this is the Tyler Glasnow trade for Chris Archer. We got our Shane Baz, we got our Austin Meadows, and we got our Tyler Glasnow in exchange for Juan Soto, who is the Chris Archer in this analogy, so therefore it doesn't make as much sense. But you get my point. So again, I'm excited about it. And I think if I'm a Padres fan, what you have to do is view it from this perspective, almost like just a philosophical standpoint, which is the Padres have been spending a whole lot of money on a couple players every year. They have not accumulated depth. Every time they have depth, AJ Preller trades it. I got love for the man. I got a lot of hate for him lately, but he can get a little trigger happy. This feels like a little bit of a pullback and saying, let's assess what we are. We still have Manny, still have Tatis, still have Bogarts, and you still have Soto and not Soto, Darvish and Musgrove. You still got plenty of players, you got stars, and you have ownership that's ready to spend, clearly. So look at it from that perspective. Instead, you got all these depth pieces, high upside depth pieces, with the exception of maybe Higashioka, although he has his use. I don't think that guy's going to randomly become,
JT
Realmuto, but like that has value. You definitely do. And for Padres fans, let me tell you, we'll take it because catching situation has been rough the past few years. Let me tell you, until our man Luis Campuzano, who, by the way, do you know what his voice sounds like? Go look that up. It'll shock you. Like, it's one of those like, that is not what I expected type of voices. It's great. It's awesome. Shouts to Campy. So yeah, I'm excited. I am. And I think that we're going to see how things pan out in spring training because the Padres already have Robbie Snelling and Dylan Lesko as their top pitching prospects. And Snelling is a guy that could potentially, turn up next year, but it's nice to know that because of these deals, they do not have to rush them. One of my biggest criticisms of the Padres the past few years is maybe they called up Tatis and they were like, wow, so if we just call up our prospects, they'll be all great immediately. No, it turns out Tatis is a freak of nature and he was just immediately good. the Carlos Correas of the world, the Francisco Lindors of the world. I'm mentioning a lot of Puerto Rican players because I have an agenda, but you get my point, right? So, like that's
why I'm always like, why isn't Benji Gill a manager? Because I have a Mexican agenda. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm the same for you. I'm same as you.
I got you. But if you look at it from that perspective, guys, like, that's really good. Just the fact that they will have some arms who are a little bit more big league tested. You have a great pitching coach. It's an easier pitching ballpark. And we're not worrying about Pedro Vila or these low tier pitchers. No offense to them. Maybe Pedro Avila will be better than all these guys somehow, right? I'm not trying to predict the future, but it's just nice to have some reassurance. You have options. You have toys to play with, dare I say, not to devalue them as humans, but it's exciting. And again, Michael King, those numbers were no joke. 30.6 K rate since 2022, 2.6 ERA. That's good stuff. And behind a very good Padres defense. The last thing I want to talk about is Trent Grisham really quickly, who we for some reason have totally forgot about. We've totally forgot to mention this. From the Padres point of view, or I should say from the Yankees point of view, I think that this is an awesome little supplementary piece. He can hit the ball hard. The problem is that he strikes out too much, and he's going to have some moments where you're like, why is it only a dribbler to first base or a home run, right? It's Joey Gallo, but without the same total power upside when he was good, right? It's similar to that. However, really capable defensive outfielder, and you won't have to start him every day, as they had to do with, say, Josh, what's his name? I'm blanking on his name. Harrison Bader. Got him mixed up with Josh Hader for a second, but I think that that's a pretty solid bet for them. Maybe the short porch works out. He definitely has power, and maybe you just need a change of scenery. So I think that's good for the Padres. And for the Padres also losing Grisham, right now they have Tatis, Jose Zokar, and Jacob Arce as their starting outfielder. I think they're going to make another move. And that's exciting if you're a Padres fan. You cleared up some money. Maybe Jung-Ho Lee, who's been rumored a lot. You can slot him at center field. You also have Jackson Merrill, your top overall prospect. There's been reports that they might have called him up last year and they wanted to play him in center field, which shows you maybe we should have known the Grisham thing was happening. If they were ready to just call up Jackson Merrill and replace Trey Grisham, that's what it means. So that's exciting from the unknown perspective. There's a little bit of fun in not knowing what's going to happen. You know what I mean? It's kind of fun for that perspective. But overall, Steve, thank you for your assistance, because I think that it's been rough for Padres fans, man. I cannot emphasize that enough.
No, I get it, dude. I get it. Like, look, I'm the producer of Locked On Yankees, but I through and through in my heart of hearts, I'm an Angels fan. Mm-hmm. So it's been bad for you this week. It's been bad for me this week too. So I feel your pain, Padres fans. You're one of the teams I definitely root for all the time, being so close to home. So I'm a slight Padres fan at heart. So I get the pain this week. It looks a little bleak right now. I get that, and I'm not taking that away from you, man. You're all your fan bases like heartbreaks right now, completely valid, and I'm not going to mince words with that. But I think you got a pretty decent haul. I think you really did. And I think you made the best of a bad situation.
Exactly. Best of a bad situation is the great TLDR of this whole thing, which is I'm upset that we were even here for the reasons I outlined in the first segment. But now that you are here, it's better than just mellowing and being upset about it and saying, all right, we'll keep Soto this year and we only get to sign a reliever this offseason. And so they said, screw that. We have enough stars. Let's go out and save a little bit of money, get it around that $200 million and build elsewhere, build a little bit more of a complete team. I think that's an exciting prospect. A team that spends a lot, but is also ready to have a little bit of depth in the background and is more than down to trade at any given The Padres have not had a normal offseason or trade deadline since I've been hosting this show. Literally not one time, Steve. Not one time have they been normal. Not in the slightest.
And then,
the Adam Frazier thing was crazy.
It's fun.
Yeah, it is fun
because of that.
At the very minimum, it's fun. So I do appreciate you, AJ. I do. If I know you're watching this. I know he's watching this.
He's an
micromanaging. Yeah. You got to stop micromanaging. You got to stop, let your managers cook, stop, just figure out the rest of the organization, get people to hit better for us. But I appreciate that you make things exciting, sir. So Shatson, did you know I ran into him at Citi Field?
Oh, wow.
No, Citi Field. I didn't run into him. Like I saw him, but I realized that after
Was it
the
a
fact.
meet cute? Did you guys like run into each other and he dropped his like The Fault in Our Stars and then you picked it up?
Yeah. He was like on a phone, like walking really fast. And I was just like, huh. And then like 20 seconds later, like, wait a minute.
Wait a second. Yeah.
What does he do? I guess you didn't know where the entrance was, Citi Field or anything like that. But Steve, before we go out, any last words you want to say to the good folks? You produce a heck of a great show over at Locked On Yankees. Everyone go subscribe. Plug anything else you'd like to plug.
Yeah, you mentioned the Michael K episode. We did that last week. That was super cool. Even if you're not a Yankees fan, you can skip the first segment. Just skip the first segment. It's all Soto talk, so we could skip that. But we did have a really cool chat with one of the best voices in baseball. So definitely go check that out. We did like rapid fire segments. We asked him some more fun stuff. Like he reveals on how he got the Sia call. Like there's some pretty cool little nuggets in there. So go check it out if you're interested. If you're just a baseball fanatic like I am. Then go check that out because Michael K was super, super cool, super nice. And I asked him about All-Star Baseball on N64, which he was one of the voices of. So go check that out. It was pretty cool.
Love, absolutely love. And guys, in terms of my podcast, you could check out, I believe it'll be Friday when it comes out or tomorrow. I don't know which day exactly. We're going to be talking about some more low cost, lower tier free agents on the pitching side of things for starting pitchers and relievers to back up what we did last week with the low cost, lower tier batters. So look forward to that, guys. And if any signing happens, of course, I will be here looking into this camera like a weird caretaker, you know, who freaks you out, but he's actually a good guy. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those types.
I don't know.
I don't know either. There's got to be some movie with that, right? I just can't think of it right now. But guys, until next time, stay safe. And of course, stay faithful, very faithful homies, and stay yodeling my Yankee doodlers. I always am bad at that part, but take care, everybody.